This article came out a couple of days ago, but I wanted to cover it because I thought it'd be interesting. President Biden is leading Marianne Williamson by more than 70 points among Democratic primary voters. According to a new poll released on Tuesday, 77% of respondents in the morning consult poll said they would support Biden in the Democratic primary or caucus, while just 4% said they would support Williamson following her campaign announcement last weekend. Williamson, a spiritual advisor and author who previously ran for president in 2020, officially launched her second long shot bid for the Democratic nomination on Saturday. More than half of Democratic primary voters, 52%, said they had never heard of Williamson, and her popularity was limited following among those who are familiar with the self-help author, the poll found. 20% of Democrats said they had a favorable view of Williamson, while 13% said the opposite. The remaining 15% said they had heard of the Democratic candidate, but they had no opinion on her, according to the poll. Williamson on Sunday accused the Democratic National Committee of rigging the primary system in favor of Biden by reorganizing the calendar. The new primary calendar, which was recommended by Biden, will place South Carolina in the first in the nation position. Biden's win in South Carolina in 2020 was key to his ultimately securing the Democratic nomination. The DNC should not be rigging this system, Williamson told ABC's This Week. They don't even pretend anymore. They're not even covert about their swaying the primary season. They're very overt about it. However, Biden and other Democrats appear to have largely dismissed Williamson's presidential bid. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker suggested on Sunday that no serious Democrats are considering a challenge to Biden, while White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre joked about Williamson's aura on Monday. I'm just not tracking that Jean-Pierre said of Williamson's, but I mean, if I had what is it called, a little globe here, a crystal ball that I can tell you, a magic 8 ball, whatever, I could fulfill her aura. I just don't have anything to share on that, she said to laughter from reporters in the briefing room. The morning consult poll was conducted March 3rd to 5th with 829 potential Democratic primary voters and a margin of error of 3 percentage points. So, before we get into the actual results of the poll, I just wanted to say that Williamson is right in stating that the Democratic primary is rigged, or that they're rigging it even further, because South Carolina was not the first state until Biden won it, and then after losing Iowa, New Hampshire, and Nevada to Sanders, now he wants to state that rejuvenated his campaign with all the conservative-leaning older voters to now be the first in the nation. So they are trying to rig it. We're gonna keep it real. That's definitely something they're doing for the explicit purpose of making it harder for a progressive person to have a chance of actually making an impact. Because generally the way this goes is that whoever wins the first state has what's called momentum, and then from there they can be expected to, if not win the following states, do very well in the ones that come after. So his hope by changing the first state to South Carolina is so that any other conservative or quote unquote moderate Democrat will do very well there and win, and then that victory will lead to them being well received in other states as well. Now, to get into the results, because I know someone who's a Williamson supporter like myself, but doesn't follow this stuff as much, might hear the results of this poll, get scared, go hide in their bomb shelter. But there's a lot of things to take into consideration here. Now, I said in my video on Williamson announcing her campaign that she was going to be done in by a lack of name recognition. And what does this poll reaffirm? That a majority of Democratic primary vote, not a big majority, but a little bit over half, 52%, said they had never heard of her, which doesn't surprise me because a lot of voters don't pay attention to this stuff as much as those that go online for their news. I mean, it's something that just is a fact that a lot of times people won't know who someone is until they run for president, or they're constantly being talked about in the news. It's a reality of this, the way things are, unfortunately. But there is some light at the end of the tunnel because, as I stated before, we're not going to have any voting until next year. So we have a solid, 10 months remaining of this year before we even get to Iowa and the rest of South Carolina, and then the rest of the states that follow. So We know that the media is not going to talk about Williamson, or if they do, it's going to be very bare bones, briefly here, briefly there. And what that means is that in this digital era, those who want to see her succeed, myself included, are going to have to work a little bit harder, but as a collective group, to get her name out there. So I've told some people around me about her. Um, I don't use Twitter anymore, but that's a place, to like post anything, but that's a place that you can go and tweet, just really what's so unfortunate about this poll is that if it gets talked about on TV, they're going to say, see, Biden is going to win the primary because he's got 70% and Williams doesn't have a chance. But they're going to leave out the fact that a lot of the people saying they support Biden are doing that because, as far as they're concerned, he's the only person running that they know. Um, and I guess I know he gets referenced a lot, but we have to remember that in 2015, when Sanders announced he was running for president, people didn't take him seriously. They didn't think he could make any type of dent. He was getting low numbers compared to Clinton. And then as his message got out there, as he campaigned more, as his supporters spread the word, then suddenly he was able to win over 20 states. So what has to happen for Williamson to be successful is for people to admit the validity of this poll, but to take away the lesson of a lot of people don't know who she is, and we have to make an effort to make her more well known among the general voter base. Um, so it's just one of those things where this seems like a bad thing and like it's scary and oh my god, he's got a 70-point lead, but leads can evaporate. Leads are indicative of the time of the present, but not of what necessarily can be the future. And the fortunate thing for us is we do have quite a ways before we get to any voting or debates. And it's also unfortunate to think about how they put these other, they have the governor of Illinois and the stupid press secretary, kind of like making jokes or not taking Williamson seriously. And it's such a shame because Williamson, as I've said before, is a serious contender. She's someone who ran for president before and made the debate stage, which already puts her on the same ground as the current Vice President Harris, for also being someone that was in debates as well. So to take a person who ran for president just 4 years ago, and did about as well as the VP, where neither of them had delegates, but they still both were debate participants, and act like she's just this joke because you want to hype up your, 80-something-year-old man that you don't think could win if people actually knew who his opponent was, I think is very pathetic. Like I said, in a true, vibrant democracy, the moment that Williamson announced she was running for president, you would see multiple pieces of news coverage. You would have interviews on all the different major networks. And like I said, this stuff isn't about helping a candidate win. It's about being like even remotely trying to be fair. Because the South Carolina primary move already was just a decision that was made to help the moderate voters snuff out the progressives in the presidential election for the foreseeable future. But there's something really disturbing about the fact that their strategy to beat her is not to talk about issues or, hey, she said this and it doesn't make any sense or it's incorrect. No, it's to pretend she doesn't exist for the most part, and then when you do acknowledge her, make it in passing or otherwise in scenarios where you never really put any focus on who she is, and it's a real shame. But like I said, the thing that we as voters have to do is talk about the campaign, talk about her with her position. So you give a little brief overview. Hey, there's this person running against Biden, and they're pro single payer healthcare and anti-war. If we do that, you're going to see a real difference in the number. Because I know people will say, "Oh, I'm just one person," but campaigns are not just won by charismatic candidates. They're won by supporters who, as a group, not we don't all have to do a whole bunch of stuff. We can all do a little bit of stuff. Make the person more known and what their positions are more accessible for the public, and then this leads to more people in the public supporting this candidate. And like I said, Williamson is someone who I do think there is a place for in this race, and especially If it's a two-person race, it'll be a little bit harder, but you've got Manchin talking about how he's considering running, which I would love because he's going to peel votes away from Biden without a doubt. But even if he doesn't get in, I think Williamson, if she gets name recognition, which is something that is very likely to happen in the following year, if we try as hard as we can, you'll see a big difference in the polling. So this isn't anything to get freaked out over.